Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my December wrap-up. So December ended up being a pretty good reading month for me. I ended up reading 13 books. I have spoken about the first 7 books that I read in December in my December mid-month wrap-up, which I will link down below for you guys to check out. So I will just be talking about the 6 books that I managed to read from the 15th through the 31st of December. The first book I picked up from the 15th through the 31st is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I picked this book up to fulfill the Pop Sugar challenge of reading a book that is based on a true story. This book is based on the last ever woman who was executed in Iceland, which is a really interesting concept. And I've heard a bit about this book on BookTube, and I'd heard some pretty good things about it, and I never realised that it's actually written by an Australian author who is actually born in Adelaide, which is where I live. So that was really awesome. I was quite excited when I flipped to the little author bio in the front and I realised that. So that's pretty cool. So if you are looking for a book to pick up, like you're doing a challenge maybe where you've got to pick a book from an author who isn't American, this could be a good choice because I have heard really good things about this and I myself also quite enjoyed this. The writing in this book is just absolutely, it's just beautifully written. The actual country of Iceland is just described so beautifully. It's so atmospheric. It was like I could feel the wind on my skin. I felt cold while reading this when she was describing kind of winter in Iceland. It was just really beautifully written. It is a slower paced book, so if you don't like slower paced books, then maybe don't pick this up, but it is done beautifully, I think. Like, the pacing felt right. It's not the type of story that felt like it should be done any quicker than what it was. I really, really enjoyed this, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I picked up was The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. This is a classic mystery story which follows a man who is walking on the road to London one day, returning from his mother's property, when he meets this woman in white. And when he walks with her back to London, and she gets into a carriage, and he then realizes that she has actually escaped from a mental asylum. And he has the chance to alert the police to where she is, but he doesn't. And the story just kind of goes from there. I adored this book. I thought I would enjoy this, but I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I'm actually going to be doing a full review of this book here on my channel, so I don't want to say like too much about it. I will link that review when it is published. It will be going up after this wrap up, but this was so good. The writing was actually quite accessible for a classic, I thought. It's still kind of written in a long-winded, I hate to say long-winded because I don't think it was too long-winded, but it's written in a more long-winded way compared to modern writing, but it isn't confusing to read. Like, I didn't have to reread sentences to try to determine what he was saying. It's just written in a more long-winded way, but I really enjoyed this. It is a big book, but definitely worth checking out. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I picked up is The Glass Arrow by Kristen Simmons. This is a book that I thought was a fantasy story. It's not really a fantasy story, it's more of a kind of dystopian story set in a world where women no longer have equal rights to men and are hunted for breeding, basically. Like, they're used, and like, they're not necessarily hunted because they grow up in the, like, if they grow up in the city, they're sold kind of to this area, or sold or given to this area to be auctioned off to men to buy for breeding and sexual pleasure purposes. But if you are living free, then men do hunt you to give to this facility for breeding purposes. So that is a premise that really intrigued me, but I had heard some mixed things about this going in. I did end up enjoying this. I believe I gave it 3.5 stars, so it was enjoyable, but I just don't think it was as well executed as it could have been. I enjoyed the romance in it. That was really good, and like I said, it was an enjoyable book. There was just a big section at the start of the book that I just found so boring. Like, it was really kind of slow, and you're just thinking, oh, like, when is something good gonna happen? Type of thing. It was just, well, yeah, a bit boring. So it really kind of, it didn't make it hard to get through because it's not a big book, but I wish that part hadn't been as boring as it was. So I did still enjoy it, as I said. So if it sounds like something that's interesting to you, I would recommend picking it up, as a lot of people did enjoy this. But yes, I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. The next book that I picked up is Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. I picked this book up to fulfill the challenge of reading a memoir. I really enjoy Tina Fey, and so I decided to pick up this book by her. I did enjoy this. It was really funny in parts, but not as funny like throughout as I expected it to be. It does have some really interesting commentary on kind of women and like women in the workplace and being a strong woman, which I did appreciate. And like I said, it was really funny in parts. I ended up giving this 4 stars. If you are a fan of Tina Fey, then I would definitely recommend checking this out. The next book that I picked up was Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. This is again by an Australian author, but this book I believe was quite popular. I believe it was last year. It has a different cover in the US, which you may recognize. I'll put a picture here so you can see the US cover. This was really good. Let me read you the back and just see what this says, because I was so intrigued just by this small little line on the back. Lies, scandal, murder in the playground. Pirawee Public's annual school trivia night has ended in a shocking riot. A parent is dead. Was it a tragic accident or something else entirely? Let me be clear, this is not a circus. This is a murder investigation. Like, what? The premise of this is really interesting, and I really loved the format of it. We know right from the start that there's kind of been this kind of incident happen at the school and that someone has died. That's it. We don't know who died. We don't know anything. And then we go back, I think, to 6 months before this trivia night, and we're leading into the trivia night, but not even knowing who died. Like, you're just guessing the whole time, and there are these little like tidbits at the start and ends of some of the chapters of different parents and stuff being interviewed about, and the detective being interviewed by, I think, a reporter about what has gone on, and like that just added to the story a lot. All of the characters in this are really complex, which I really appreciate, and there's no like cookie cutter characters here. Like, they do all have really like interesting kind of issues and backstories and things like that. I will say that there are trigger warnings in this for bullying, sexual assault, and domestic abuse. So if that is something that bothers you, then maybe give this one a miss. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I, at 2 different times, thought I even just knew the small detail of who had been killed. I was wrong. I didn't even figure out who got killed, let alone what happened. Like, this is really good. I definitely recommend checking this out. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. And the final book that I picked up in December and in 2015 was Game of Lies by Tess Diamond. Now, I was given this book to review by the author. I reviewed the first book in this series back in November, and I really enjoyed that one, and so the author also gave me a copy of the sequel to read, and I also really enjoyed this one. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as the first one. I've given it a 3.75 stars as opposed to a 4 stars for the last one, but I did really enjoy it. This is a series, kind of a romance, suspense, mystery. It's not really, like, it's a... In their first book, a senator's daughter has been kidnapped, and the main character, Maggie, is like a disgraced FBI agent who is brought back in to help find this kidnapped senator's daughter. So I did still really enjoy it. The writing is really kind of vivid. It's one of those books that you can really picture really clearly in your mind, and I really do enjoy the romance that is happening in these books. I believe this is just a trilogy, so there's only one final book to come out, and each of these books, it is quite short. they are quite short and they end on cliffhangers, so I really can't wait to pick up the third book. Both of these first two books have already been published, I believe, so you can check them out. I will of course have links to all the Goodreads pages down below for you guys to check out. So those were all of the books that I read in the second half of December. My favourite book of December is definitely The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, so be sure to check out my review of that when I get it up. If you guys have any thoughts on any of these books that I read, I would love to talk to you guys down below, or let me know what your guys' favourite book of December was. I'd love to chat about that as well. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye guys!